let's just sew whatever.
Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. In today's video we are making the Chevron add-on for the Needle and Anchor Goddess of the Sea bag. It's so pretty. This was definitely a time-consuming bag. It wasn't that bad to cut out. I do have a separate video on cutting it out if you're interested. That should be up before this one. But it is so much fun to make. I used the peel and stick interfacing from Fabric Therapy. Just wondering what this little part is. And I used a new glitter vinyl that I will be carrying in January to make this. I only used the interfacing on the main panels of the bag. I did not interface the gusset. And then for the lining, I used water-resistant canvas. So it's a super lightweight interface. Super lightweight as far as interfacing and lining fabric. And then for the strap, I decided to do a crossbody strap, and I used the two-tone strap method just because I think it's really pretty. With this vinyl. So yeah, I hope you enjoy this tutorial. If you're not already, I would love for you to subscribe. Let me know down below if you are picking up this pattern or if you already did, what you liked about it. And let's get started. So step one is sewing the gusset, the exterior gusset pieces together and adding our interfacing. So I'm gonna go ahead and start that. Putting right sides together. Make sure they're lined up. I think Dorothy can hear me. All right, and then we'll press this. We'll press this over the top stitch. Okay. Hey! What are you doing? Okay, so now we're going to peel this open.
Yes! Yes! Yes!
What do you see?
Yes! People!
You see people?
Yeah!
Oh!
Really?
And center it.
Yeah. I go! I go! I go!
Oh, did you find some snips?
Yeah?
Oh, thank you so much.
Kid!
Snips.
Kids!
Snips. Alright, so I've got that pressed in place, and then she shows in the pattern instructions that you can, you want to watch Groot?
Yeah?
That you can sew around that, but I'm not going to.
Sorry.
You!
Alright, so we've got our gusset mostly ready to go. And then I have a full bobbin. So I'm going to go ahead and work on my crossbody strap. Again, this is not part of the pattern. This is my own little doing. So I'm just adding double-sided tape down the center. And then I'll add double-sided tape down the center of my exterior fabric as well. I did not interface the exterior fabric. I think the water-resistant canvas is sturdy enough on its own. And then I'm just pressing the long raw edge in towards the center. making sure to press down as I go. And then since we are not folding this strap over on itself, it's not a 4-fold, we're just doing 2 folds, you can butt the center raw edges up right next to each other so that it's a true 1-inch strap. I am using 2 lever snap hooks and then a 1-inch wide mouth slider. I don't think I would need a wide mouth because this vinyl isn't super thick, but it can't hurt. Dorothy's really loving watching Totoro right now. So if you hear her yell Toto, it's Totoro. Okay, got that pressed. Ooh. If you're worried that your vinyl won't stay taped, maybe work on one fabric at a time. If you're using a thinner fabric for your exterior of the strap, you could interface a 3/4 inch wide piece of interfacing so that folding it is super easy, because then you can just kind of wrap it around that interfacing. There we go. Make sure that the tape doesn't touch. And I'm folding raw edges in towards the center again. You could do both sides at the same time if you wanted. I don't for some reason, I don't know. And then I will be cutting off the selvage of my fabric. I just have it included in the fold because I didn't feel like cutting it off. I don't know. I don't know. And then we can use another piece of double-sided tape, probably like an 1/8 inch wide or a 1/4 inch wide, to hold these pieces together. If your machine doesn't like double-sided tape, you probably want to use a different method. I think I have some like 3/8 inch wide. Yeah, I have some 3/8 inch wide. So I think this will hold everything a little bit easier. And again, you're still not sewing through it if your machine doesn't like the double-sided tape. Give it a nice press. And then I will lay right sides together. I'm just going to unpeel slowly. If you want this to have no raw edges, you could do right sides together, sew along the top, and then flip it. Up to you. Okay, and then I'm just going to peel off the double-sided tape and slowly set these down. And oh my God, is this the most beautiful strap ever? Or what? So yeah, this is a really fun strap method. It's just very time consuming, so I don't do it as often as I'd like to. But such a pretty result. And taping that down really makes a huge difference, because then you don't have to worry about any shifting as you are top stitching. Okay. And I've got this extra piece here. Dang. It's like 4 inches. If it were a little bit longer, I would say I'd use it for my crossbody strap connector. But alas, it is not. So I'm just cutting off extra little bits. And then I'm going to sew about 1/8 of an inch from the outside edge of my accent fabric. My stitch length set to 5. Okay, and then we can add our hardware, 2 snap hooks, 1 slider. And if you order hardware from anywhere and it comes in like individual baggies, save those baggies. You can reuse them, or you can send them to me and we will reuse them. We love, love, love reusing those pieces. All right, so then it's up to you how you want to sew the strap on. Like, do you want the accent to the outside, or do you want it to the inside? I want it to the outside. So I'm going to wrap it around the bar, and then you can rivet this in place or sew it in place if you want. Totally up to you. I like to do 2 parallel lines of stitching. Make sure I get that lined up. I am using one of the variegated threads from Wizardry, and it's very pretty with this fabric. All right, so we're going to flip this over, add one of our snap hooks, go up and over the center bar. And then we'll add our snap hook to the side. And then you could do a box stitch and some rivets. You could just do a rivet. I'm going to do a little box stitch. And a rivet. So I'm just going to add a nickel rivet. So go ahead and punch that hole in the center. at our post cap and then set that rivet. All right, now it's time to have some fun with our exterior fabrics, piecing all of that together. And it's pretty well laid out. We've got, it's 1, 2, 3, 4 to 5. You just want to make sure that you've got everything in the right direction. So go ahead and start with a 1 to a 2. And you want to make sure that you don't have, see, I've got a back here and a regular one here. So I want to make sure I have an A1 back and an A2 back lined up to each other. And then I'm going to grab an A3 back, line that up. Kind of glad I'm using a glitter vinyl because, yeah, it sticks to itself just enough to hold everything in place. And then we'll grab an A4. So if you can, it doesn't hurt to keep everything labeled in your pile. So I've got 1 here, 2 here, 3, 4, and 5. And so I'm just keeping them in order as we sew. You can kind of open it up to make sure everything is fitting together correctly. Oh, there we go. Why doesn't that look right? That together. Okay, and then our last little A5. And then you may want to use a seam roller or double-sided tape to help you press these open as we top stitch. Top toe. Pressing on that seam as I'm sewing so that all those layers stay nice and flat. And then this is what I mean by just turning your brain off, sewing those seams down, just going on autopilot. To top stitch all of that. So there is one of our pieces. So pretty. And we'll just keep going. And if you think it would be easier for you to top stitch as you piece, you can absolutely do that as well. I think it's kind of all about finding a rhythm that works for you. Now this is the opposite side I'm doing, so it's kind of confusing me. But we will get through it. I'm telling you, this glitter vinyl is a blessing. For this part. If you are not as skilled at opening your seams, you could probably pick one of the vinyls to be where you fold your seams toward and top stitch on, but it won't be a nice flat piece. You're gonna have some thickness on one and not thickness on another. You would want to make one more bobbin than you'd think you would need so that you don't run out. When you're sewing the bag. Okay, so I've got opposite panels finished. So now I can line these up, right sides together. Oh, Connor. You really want to make sure that all of those points line up, or it's not going to turn out as well as you hope. And then I am not trimming my like jump threads at the moment because I don't want my stitches to come undone. So I'm just making sure that they're not on the exterior of the fabric. And when I'm sewing through, I'm kind of back stitching over those connections. Because now we're going to butterfly this open and top stitch. So it's a little thick in some spots. That's okay, we can get through it. Oy, oy, oy. This is so beautiful. Oh my gosh. I don't even want to add a name tag to this. Like, I don't even know how I would. It's just so pretty. So now I can trim off all of those little threads, and I'm going to take it over to my cutting table so that I can cut out the interfacing. And some people may like to trim as they go, like as you're sewing. But it's really going to save time if you just kind of trim it all at the end. All right. Okay. So I cut 2 pieces of interfacing while I was over there. And you just want to peel off a little bit of it at a time. So I'm going to get the top half started, and then I'll peel off the bottom half. All right, I've got a little wrinkle, but it's okay because I can peel up and press it again. And I'm gonna go from this way so I can press all of those pieces nice and flat so that our top stitching on those is just like perfect and there's no weird bubbling or anything. It's making such a difference. Oh my gosh, I can't even. And you just want to make sure you're pressing in the same direction so you don't get any weird air bubbles. Oh, it's so perfect. So if you needed to now, you could press this with your heat press for a couple of seconds just to really adhere it, but you won't have any issues, I'm telling you. Okay, that was really fun. Just so gorgeous. All right. What next? What next? I'm gonna work on my lining because I want to get to like the end. I want to put the front together and then just go for it. So let's work on the lining. Need my zipper overlay. These are my zipper lining pieces, and then I've got my slip pocket and the overlay piece here, and then those are my lining pieces. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and add 2 pieces of double-sided tape to this overlay. If you need to, you can mark out the center, that 1-inch line, and then add one above and one below. Sometimes I'll just use 1 piece of 1/2-inch wide double-sided tape, but using 2 smaller pieces really helps keep it nice and flat and attached to your fabric. So that's what we're doing. And then this is a nice place to add a woven label. Oh goodness gracious. I'm gonna do one of those D&D that says this bag is a natural 20. And then fold this down and over the top edge. And then we're going to top stitch. if you wanted to baste around the bottom edge, you could, but we're just gonna sew it to the other side of the lining, so I'm not gonna do that. Ooh, it's so pretty! I'm really happy with my fabric choices. All right, so I'm gonna fold this in half. She does have some different markings you can use to create your slip pockets, but I just want to do, throw that on the ground, the center. So I'm coming up the center. Across and back down. And then if you want to add a rivet in the middle there, you can do that. Super pretty. Okay, and then we can add our overlay. I'm gonna iron my water resistant canvas pieces. They're a little crumpled. So we've got our pull going to the left, and I am setting my zipper face up with my fabric right side up, and this is my longer lining piece, and then I'm taking the shorter and laying that on the other side of the zipper, right sides touching, right sides of the fabric touching. And then if you want to top stitch those down, you can. I'm just going to press this with my iron. All right, I'm gonna change my bobbin. It would make it, but just barely. But it's like, you make so many bobbins, why risk it? All right, and then you can add a woven label to the overlay too if you want, but I don't want to add too many, so I won't. All right, and then we're gonna add double-sided tape to the top and bottom edges of the overlay. And then while I have the double-sided tape out, I'm gonna go ahead and add it to my zipper panel as well. What are they doing up there? All right, so we'll grab the top edge. I'm gonna grab a ruler so I can center this on my lining. I'm gonna add it 1.5 inches down from the top edge. It seems good. And then we'll have 1.5 inches in on either side. So once you've got the top placed, you can peel off the bottom tape. And then press it into place. And we're just gonna sew around the outside edge. I'm gonna switch my stitch length down to 4.5. CJ's hanging something in the kitchen upstairs, and I'm tempted to go up there and be like, okay, but are you hanging it level? Because last time he hung something, it was very crooked. And then if you can, dragging your scissors along that fabric as you cut means you hopefully won't cut through the vinyl. All right, and then we're going to peel off one side of our zipper. Center that into place. Come up a little bit here. Okay. And then with lining open on either side, and then before I close up this piece, I push in my zipper pull and close it. And then we can lay this down and trim off any excess so that they're even. And then I'm gonna, since we're turning the bag through that zipper pocket, I'm gonna fold up the bottom and just going to sew up to the top of the zipper tape through the teeth. And then repeat on the other side, folding this up. And then we have this beautiful pocket here. All right, and then we have our lining gusset pieces, which we will sew together just like we did the exterior gusset pieces. I really need to iron these, and I will. I'm just gonna fold this to one side to top stitch. I'm really not in the mood to butterfly that one open as well, and then I'm going to iron this. All right, and there is that portion of the lining ready. We've got the top portion that we need to add our brain blank snaps to. And I'll work on that in a minute. I'm gonna go ahead and do the strap connectors. If you're going to do this method, I would say use 3/4 inch wide hardware instead of 1 inch wide hardware so that you have a little more room in the gusset to add this. I may regret it, but we'll see. Beavers. Or you could sew these to the outside gusset of the bag if you wanted. Adding that 1 inch hardware. All right, now we can mark out our magnetic snap robot. Talking about robots. And I will be using some of the peel and stick interfacing for this part. Although I guess it doesn't really matter right now that I have those perfectly marked because I'm not going to be able to see it anyway. And I could also just add this over top or both. You could add it under and over those magnetic snaps. Excuse you. All right. Won't see that. One, two, three, four. So I've marked out the center where the magnetic snap is going to go, and then I'm lining up that washer with the center dot I've marked out, marking out those parallel lines, and then taking my seam ripper and carefully cutting through the interfacing and exterior fabric. And then whichever side you decide to add, make sure you're consistent. So I'm adding the magnetic part, the innies, to this side. And then I'll add the others to the other side. kitchen in my house is like right above my head. So I apologize, you can hear my family. It's fine. Okay, so there's that part added. And these don't get added the way you might think they would. You sew your gusset to your main lining pieces, the lower lining, and then this gets attached a little bit differently. And I was very confused when I was cutting out the pattern pieces because I was like, okay, that doesn't line up. And then I read a little bit further into the pattern and I was like, oh, okay. We are almost done. Time. Oh crap. Oh, there they are. All right, so marking my 2 parallel lines out. And I don't worry about what direction the snaps are going. You could also use like the KAM magnetic snaps if you wanted. That just rivet on. And then you really want to make sure that those line up when you sew these pieces together. Okay. So there's that. Oh. Okay. So that I don't forget, I'm going to attach my strap connectors to the top of the gusset. Maybe I will do the hidden strap connector because there really isn't enough room at that gusset for a 1-inch wide hardware piece. Hold please. All right, so I'm going to do the hidden connector. I'm using the other vinyl to help reinforce this little section. So what I'm gonna do is I'm poking the corners of the piece, and then I'm gonna line up the accent piece 1.25 inches from the top. Line those up. And then I'm going to mark out the corner pieces. And luckily we only need to do this twice, so not bad. And then it's a 1-inch line, and I believe they're about 1/2 inch from each other. So I'm going to sew those 2 parallel lines like we do a zipper pocket. You want to make sure you keep it pretty close to the size you need it, and I'm going to do 2 parallel lines for that. And then I'm going to carefully seam rip a little bit, not all the way, and then I'm going to snip into the corners, so like an old school zipper pocket. So you can see I've done a little bit of a snip, and then I'm going to cut into the corners. And this is kind of like the method on the Hexatote. I don't know which video is releasing first, but a little more, I don't even want to say structured or stable, but it's just different. So we're going to turn this through that hole. So you don't want to use anything too stiff that you can't maneuver easily. And then what we're going to do is we're going to line this up. Oh. Anyway, so this gets sewn to the top edge, and we're also going to add a rivet. And I love the idea of adding the rivet because it's not something you're going to see, but it's going to add a lot of structure and stability to the bag. So I've attached it there. I'm going to grab a couple rivets actually. Okay, well that's too many, but it is what it is. And then I'm going to punch a hole into the center. But you want to make sure it's through that extra stabilizing fabric. We're going to add the post and then the cap. And then I'm going to set this. And then we're going to add our D-ring. And slide this down and through. And then it's up to you if you want to sew on the outside to where you'd see that stitch, or if you want to lift your gusset fabric up and out of the way to sew through the connector and that stabilizing fabric. And then you can add a rivet underneath or through all of those layers, totally up to you. I think I'm gonna add one. I'm gonna add 2, I think. I want one in the middle here for looks and to keep my D-ring from wiggling around. And then I want one through the gusset fabric as well. Centered, there we go. So I'm adding 3 total rivets to this connector, but only 2 that you can see. I was just reading over all that to make sure I did it correctly. I don't know why I'm so phlegmy. But for the most part, I did. Yeah. And then we're just going to want to make sure that we keep our hardware far enough out of the seam allowances as we're sewing. All right. So we'll repeat all of those steps on the other side. So I'm going to measure 1 1/4 inch down and lay my little scrap piece of fabric into place. I'm going to mark out the 4 corners of this little connector bit. Mark out those 2 parallel lines. You definitely want to use a fabric that you know is going to hold up for this area. Nothing that's going to fray or deteriorate over time, because there is a lot riding on this holding up. And so the pattern instructions say to sew the whole box. It's really up to you and your personal preference. But I'm going to cut about a 3/4 inch line down the center. I mean, I'm doing the same thing I did on the other side, and then snipping into those corners. It's so fun to see how many different methods there are to do essentially the same thing. I mean, it's kind of like math. There's all kinds of solutions for the same problem. And you can just kind of pick your favorite. All right. Press that down. Make sure your little corners are poking out into your seam allowance. And then we're going to slide our hardware in. About like that. Make sure it's nice and straight. And you're going to sew right along the top edge. And then you can add a rivet. I don't know how I feel about adding that rivet there. It heightens the connector, making it harder to lay your hardware flat, I feel like. So like with that added height of the rivet, my D-ring isn't sitting low enough to be really tight to the fabric. I guess it doesn't matter if you're using an O-ring though, which is what the pattern says to use. So I guess that's on me. All right. Poking that hole. Sliding our D-ring or O-ring, whatever hardware you're using. And then the pattern does say you can top stitch through the exterior fabric right there. And that makes sense because you don't want this to kind of pull over time to where you'd see the under fabric. Like, Although with how many rivets I added, I don't think that'll be an issue. So I'm gonna keep it consistent to what I did on the other side. And I'm gonna fold my gusset up and out of the way while I sew down the connector to the stabilizing fabric. Okay. Poking those holes. For the one in the middle, I kept getting a bent rivet because of the bulk difference. So I found that putting the post in through the other side and pressing this way helped a lot. So if you're having issues, try that. Hopefully that'll help. All right, and then I will press these and then we can finish the bag. And then just for me, I decided to baste the stabilizer on the sides and trim away the excess. And I'm not feeling like this gusset really needs any interfacing, but if I were going to add interfacing, it would be to the lining gusset so that my exterior seams aren't super bulky. So if you're thinking one way or the other, maybe add it to your lining. All right, so I'm gonna fold my D-rings down and in so that they're out of the seam allowance. And then we'll grab our exterior. Because the exterior gusset gets added all the way around the top of the bag. So you're going to line up that center seam. Again, this glitter vinyl is a blessing and a curse. Line up the top edge of the bag and the center to start, because then you'll clip the rest as you go. Well, not as you go, but you'll clip the rest in to itself. And then if you have issues getting everything to line up, what we're going to do is just make little tiny snips in the curve. And this creates a spine to that curve. So instead of it not wanting to bend and hold together, this will kind of create some relief in the curve so it can open up a little bit nicer. That's the only way I can think to fully describe it. But if you try it and it works for you, let me know down below. If you try it and it doesn't work for you, I want to know that too. Because you're probably just doing it wrong then. Just saying. Okay. I gotta remember that I haven't added my nameplate yet. I need to do that. Okay. And then I'm going to use a pretty small seam allowance for this because I don't want to get too close to the hardware. I am moving it out of the way as I sew through this, but still. And then using that small seam allowance means I don't need to trim my excess fabric, which would risk me deteriorating all of that butterfly stitching, etc. It's so freaking pretty. Okay, I'm gonna add my nameplate super quick. I don't want to forget to do this. It'd be bad. So I'm gonna add it on the second. Yeah, I'm gonna add it 4 inches down in the center. Making sure to line up my ruler to the top edge. Keeping my center line centered, obviously. And then my nameplate is 2 inches wide. So I'm gonna mark out where the prongs are with my nameplate centered. And then seam rip those parallel lines. And then slide my nameplate through. Yep, that's perfect. I thought about using rainbow hardware for this bag, but I'm glad I went with nickel. I think it doesn't detract. It's not distracting, you know, like rainbow would kind of pop against, while this one kind of melts in. So I like that. I like that about it. All right. Repeating those steps, lining up the center first, and then I'm going to sew Gusset up. Thank you, Tiara. Tiara? I think it was Tiara. For that terminology. In the Dallas workshop at Sunny, I was trying to explain something and she was like, so you mean Gusset up? I was like, yes, that's genius. It's so easy. It is what it is, but I couldn't think of that for some reason. And once you've done this method, you could really apply this to any bag, as far as like piecing the panels together if you really enjoyed that. It's just quilting, more or less. Just make sure that you account for when you're trimming away, that you don't cut through your stitches without reinforcing them or anything. Clipping the curves to help them sit nice together. Yeah, I'm really happy with the interfacings I chose. I don't think the Gusset really needs a whole lot. The beginning of the pattern does kind of talk through how to choose your interfacings, so definitely read over that if you're not sure what to use or what not to use. And then just look in and double check to make sure that you've caught all of your seams. Give a nice press if you're not sure. You can see this bag has some nice structure, some stand-up ability, so I'm happy with that. And we can move on to the other side. So I'm going to sew these top panels together. I'm kind of increasing my seam allowance as I go into the bottom end of the bag. Just double checking to see, okay, do I top stitch that open? Yeah, butterfly the seams open and top stitch. Okay, then we can set that aside. All right, moving on to attach the gusset to the lining. We're gonna line up the center and the lining. If you use really thick materials, you can leave an opening in the bottom of your lining. I don't think we'll have any issues turning this through the zipper pocket. It's a very large zipper pocket, which is good. And then we'll use that same method on the lining. Curve, just snipping very carefully. It's really like 1/8 of an inch I'm snipping in, nothing too crazy. If you're worried about your fabric fraying, you could use pinking shears possibly to help hold that together in place too. And then I'm increasing the seam allowance in the bottom of the bag so that our lining fits nicely inside and it's not too big. And then I'm going to use pinking shears to trim away the excess lining. Because I didn't interface the gusset on the exterior, any excess fabric like this, you'd really be able to feel it in the bag. So I don't want that. can't recall if the Goddess of the Sea original one has a zipper panel or not, but this bag you could definitely add a zipper panel if you wanted to. Snip just the exterior fabric. So now we are ready to attach the top of our lining. So we want to snip the center top of the bottom half of our lining. So that is where this is going to get attached. So I'm also snipping the bottom center here because I already know where the side centers are. So this will get attached like this. Right sides together, lining up those centers. This is another seam that is supposed to be like butterflied open and top stitched, but I don't think I'm gonna do that. That's a lot of work. So I think I'll probably just top stitch it on the vinyl and call it a day. But we're gonna clip around. I am folding my lining gusset into that seam. So folding my seams in toward each other on to the gusset. You could butterfly that open if you wanted. And maybe I will, we'll see. If you need to, you can use double-sided tape to help you hold all of that in place. Yeah, I don't feel like butterflying that. So I'm gonna fold it up and top stitch on the vinyl. Or you could fold it down and top stitch on the lining. I'm gonna fold it down and top stitch on the lining. Mostly because I think I would get too close to the magnetic snaps on my machine, like with how wide my foot is. So this feels right. And then make sure that your zipper pocket is folded out of the way so you're not top stitching through an area you shouldn't be. Okay, and then we're going to flip this right side out. Okay, well, this is just as pretty as our exterior. It's a little face. All right. We're going to put this in the exterior. Before you move on, just make sure you've got no pieces of hardware sitting out, anything like that. All right, we've got right sides together. Lining up seams here. I am folding the seams of the gusset in on itself, just like I did for the lining. And then you want to kind of press all these edges together, clip along the top. If you used interfacing on this part, you may want to trim it out of the seam allowance so that it isn't too thick for top stitching. But I think we should be okay. It's a perfect fit. I love that for us. Now we're ready to top stitch. Lost it. Okay, you want to check the top to make sure you've caught your lining and your exterior. Everything looks good. I'm going to pull my lining out to separate, and then I'm going to reach into my zipper pocket and I'm going to grab the bottom exterior. And then it's pushing and pulling and trying to get it through. You want to make sure you're using a vinyl that isn't going to crease while you're turning. Yes. And then press along the seams. Press open your exterior and make sure you run your hand along the gusset. And I've kind of got my hand in a fist as I'm pressing so I don't hurt a nail or anything. Oh, it's so beautiful. And then just double check around that top edge that you don't have any loose seams, any stitches coming out, anything like that. And then we're going to roll this seam back and forth and clip around the top edge. This bag looks like a holiday. Like, it's just so pretty. I'm really glad I added the stabilizer, but I probably should have trimmed it out of the seam allowance along the top. Not that it's too bulky for my machine, but I just don't want to risk the look of my stitches as I'm top stitching. I don't know, it'll probably be fine. Pressing along, see how right here it's not sitting really nice? So now I can reach into my open zipper pocket and I can kind of repress along those seams just to make sure everything is out. And now I'll sew it shut and then I'll top stitch. Oh, you get to keep my hair. So if you need to iron this first, you can. I'm gonna add a clip or two. And I'm going to sew this shut and add a woven label. And then I need to remember that my stitch length is set to 4 still, and increase that. If you're worried about your bobbin running out, check it now or just switch it. All right, I have my stitch length set to 5. My bobbin would have been absolutely fine, but I psyched myself out by telling myself I should check the bobbin. Zipper pocket back in the bag. It's a really nice size zipper pocket too. It's really spacious but fits the bag perfectly. Like, it's not too big. Connor. And just double check that those snaps snap together to close the bag. Wow, wow, wow. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Okay. Let's stop stitch. No, I'll get it later. You could top stitch this from either direction. If you have a cylinder arm, use that. If you've got these like bulky parts of your seam that you're worried about your machine going over, you can use a glass breaking tool or like your clamping tool to help compress those seams. And then you can tie off those threads, trim them down. And I'm taking my lighter just super quick to the ends of my thread. Just make sure it's not gonna melt your vinyl. And then it's time to clip on that crossbody strap. Or if you're using a different strap method, use that, of course. But that is it for this bag. It is so beautiful. This was so much fun. And I promise in person, those match a lot better. In camera, it doesn't seem to match as well. But that is it for this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you try it out. This bag is so much fun to make. It is definitely a labor of love, and I will see you all next time.